What is good with the YouTube? It is your boy, Sean Rock to the represent Mandatory Thrive HGBM, because every day it is mandatory for us to thrive, and I am back again with another video. And in this video, I'm going to talk about a very sensitive subject, but I feel like it's valid. I feel like it needs to be shared, and I feel like it could be a benefit and impact somebody's life and help somebody along their journey. So as of today, it's been 1 year since I've been officially divorced, and it's been a very, very challenging year, filled with a lot of trials and tribulations. But in this year, I will say this: I've become a much better human being. I faced some giants that I was not willing to face before. And I've grown by leaps and bounds. So I want to talk about some cautionary points for men and women when considering long-term relationships and considering marriage. And I also want to preface that this has a lot more to do with you than it has to do with the other person or your significant other. So I want to talk about some of the reasons why I felt I got into long-term relationships in the past, and some of the challenges that I was running from that put me in those relationships, and why I don't think that's a good idea. So the first reason I felt like I've always gotten into long-term relationships in the past was to cure my own personal loneliness, as well as I would say like childhood challenges that I faced, right? This was a big reason why I stayed in long-term relationships. And if you look at the history of my life, I've been in long-term relationships since I was 13 or 14 years old, up until 33. I was always in a long-term relationship. I think prior to that, the longest I was outside of a actual committed relationship was, maybe like 3-4 months. That was the longest I was ever outside of a relationship. Now, I always dealt with, in my younger days, I've always dealt with a multitude of women, but I always had a long-term relationship during that process, until I got married, of course. But yeah, that's kind of how I carried it. So the first thing was I got into long-term relationships to cure loneliness, and also to deal with childhood trauma. That's one of the biggest reasons why I got into long-term relationships. The reason why I don't think that you should get into long-term relationships, or you should deal with anybody based on these reasons, is because, number one, whatever childhood trauma or challenges that you face, you're going to bring them into that situation. They're going to manifest itself into that situation, and that's exactly what has always happened with me. All of the challenges that I faced, and all of the different things that I need healing for, and the different things that I needed to grow for, I brung those things right into my relationships, right? They manifest themselves, and they didn't, like, the relationships didn't actually make them better. They put a band-aid on it, but when they did rear their head out, it was not a good look. You get what I'm saying? So deal with your trauma. Not saying that you can't engage and date and deal with people, but you don't want your relationship to be a reflection or something to try to put a band-aid on childhood trauma. You want yourself to heal from that childhood trauma and that to be reflected in your relationship. The biggest thing too is like loneliness. The reason why you don't want to get in a relationship with loneliness, because based on loneliness, is because a lot of times you'll end up more lonely, and you'll end up not catering to that person correctly, because you were engaging them based on a deficit in yourself, not an addition, right? And when you engage a person based on a deficit, a lot of times that deficit increases, because you're pouring out, and if you already have a deficit while you're pouring out, you're just going to become more depleted in the process. So if you're lonely, you'll probably temporarily feel more secure in a long-term relationship, but once again, you won't treat that person correctly, because you haven't taught yourself how to deal with your own loneliness and different things like that. Another reason I would say I always got into long-term relationships is because of fear of responsibility and what I seen or what I thought was the way to move. I won't say who told me this. I'll just say it wasn't my mom, but there were women who told me this. Women told me, get you a girl that's moving like this and moving like that and secure your situation. So that's pretty much what I've always been taught to do, is lean on a woman, right? You can't sustain yourself by yourself, so you get with a woman and you bring what you got and she bring what she got, and then it's a little bit better than you by yourself, and you won't have to worry about figuring out all of these different things. Now, this is a horrible way of thinking. This is a horrible way of thinking, because what this is going to do is, and what it did to me a lot of times in my marriage now, within the first 1 year and 6 years, I was definitely providing, in that marriage. Well, maybe the first, I'll give myself 6 years I was providing, but the last 4 I wasn't. What this is going to do, your masculinity, your frame, your ego will be damaged, and you won't be able to lead correctly when you do this, because you don't feel true confidence in your stance, in your leadership, because your position is kind of put in place based on the efforts of someone else, right? Or based on being in a situation with another person, and you didn't get to fulfill your obligations and establish yourself first. And that, what I felt like in my marriage, that manifests itself a lot. Like, I wanted to stand on certain things. I wanted to love in certain ways. I wanted to communicate in certain ways. I wanted to be efficient within the context of the situation, but I wasn't able to, because I knew in the back of my mind that I made poor choices by rejecting certain responsibilities prior to getting into a situation. Like, I was about to get an apartment. I was about to do all of these different things a little before, maybe like 4 months before I got into this long-term relationship, into this marriage. But I was afraid of that responsibility. So I opted out of that and decided to pursue a situation, you know, that made me feel more safe, right? It made me feel more safe. And a lot of times, a lot of people don't talk about this, but a lot of dudes in the black community, a lot of people that grow up with, you know, in the neighborhoods, it's grandmothers and mothers and aunties that own the homes. So typically, a lot of black men, we feel safer tucking under a woman than we do tucking under a man or tucking under our own selves. So that's exactly what I did. I went and got with a woman, but internally I was still constantly at war with myself about making that choice, and I couldn't stand on business because I didn't feel confident, because I knew I needed to go through that process. But I opted out because it was an easier situation for me than doing what I'm doing now. You know what I'm saying? And based on what I've experienced in this year, I get why people don't do this, right? But given what I've experienced in this year, I get why this is totally worth it, because I'm a totally different dude. I have totally different standards. I have totally different confidence in myself. I trust myself much more. I believe in myself much more, because I've showed myself, at least for the beginning stages, that I'm starting to be able to actually take care of myself, and eventually I'll actually be able to take care of, you know, others and support others and bring people into my life. And that's valuable, and that's something that you can stand on when hard times hit, where before you're just winging it. So men, the point I'm making with all of that is, like, you have to go your own way for a season and build yourself up and build your value. Women are born with value. Men, we have to build it. It's just the way it is. And it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of effort. It's not going to be overnight. It's going to be hard. Nobody's going to come for you. You got to put the pain in. You got to put the work in. And you have to accept your wins and your losses. And that's exactly what I've been doing. So, don't go into a situation with someone trying to do this 50-50 thing. Be secure in yourself. Be sure that you can take care of yourself, support yourself, not just financially, but physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Like, have these houses at least somewhat balanced, right? Or be stable enough to handle a situation where you know that you're sacrificing something. For me, I could never internally be okay with the sacrifices I made. I developed resentment over time to my marriage and to my children. Over time, I developed resentment. It didn't start that way, but over time, I developed resentment towards them. But the resentment that I developed towards them wasn't technically based on them. It was based on me not having the proper self-leadership for myself, because I put myself in that situation, right? And then insecurity played a big role into this too, because at this time, you know, I felt that I wanted to secure this relationship because I was insecure about my own self. So instead of sticking to my own original plans of dating, courtship, blah, 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 I basically sped up the process simply because that would secure the situation. And why do we do this? We don't secure situations just because we insecure. We secure situations because we want to have sex, right? We want to have sex without guilt, because I was a extreme Christian at the time. So, I'm dealing with somebody and I want to have sex. So I got into a relationship and I secured it because I want to have sex. So that's part one of this. I'm going to continue talking about this. I'm going to continue to break this down, continue to show you guys my story, be very transparent about where I'm at, why I don't think guys should do this. But I also want to say I can understand why dudes do this, especially dudes who come from the inner city, because it can almost feel like there's no way out, but you got to make a way out even when there's no way out. So right now, I don't have much in this 1 year anniversary of my divorce, but I have a hell of a lot more than I had prior externally. But internally, I have so much more value to offer. And when the time may be, when I'm fully content and prepared and I've built my value and built my situation up to where I can stand on business and feel solid about where I'm at, like, I'm going to be a much more productive leader, simply because I understand what it takes to be a leader, and I've respected my own process. As a man, you have to respect your own process. You have to respect your own purpose. Your purpose has to come before a woman. It has to come before your kids. It has to become before everything. The reason why I know this is true, because my purpose was here when I was 7 years old. This thing was here. When I was 7 years old, I didn't have no kids. I didn't have no ex-wife. I didn't have no relationship. I didn't have any of that. But I had my purpose. Your purpose is what God has intended for you to do on this earth, what you were made to do. You know what I'm saying? So, I say all that to say you must get on your purpose. You must build yourself up. You must be able to care for yourself. You must have your situation solidified before you bring someone else into your situation, because it's a lot of components that come with that, right? And as a man, you got to stand on business. You get what I'm saying? Like, you got to be solid. You know what I'm saying? You got to be unwavering, not perfect, but you got to be solid. And I can honestly say, in a lot of ways, I was not solid. In a lot of ways, I was. You know what I'm saying? In a lot of ways, I was, but a whole lot of ways, I wasn't. And the biggest one is just my own convictions. I didn't stand on my own convictions, and that's big. So, the healing process for my marriage, I want to talk about that real fast. So immediately when I got divorced, I went into counseling. I've done over 20 counseling sessions. I did counseling sessions right off the bat. And the reason why I did that is because I was having a very difficult time with transitioning. I was confused. I was hurt. I didn't know what was going to happen. You know what I'm saying? Because this had been my life for 10 whole years. I just didn't understand what was going to be next for me. I definitely felt liberated and free, but I felt stripped of my identity in the process. So I had to go to counseling. And the counseling really helped. But I would say for me, what helped more so with my healing was just my own personal journey and journaling reflection. That's what really helped me get through the first 6 months. And the first 2 to 3 months in my healing process of my, divorce, I wasn't really healing. Like, I still wanted to be with that particular person for like the first 3 months of the situation. Like, I did not accept it in the first 3 months. Like, the first 3 months I was like struggling. You know what I'm saying? And then at around month 4, I remember all this because I journaled it. Around month 4 is when I came to reality, like, okay, this is over. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is over. You got to rebuild yourself. You got to start over. And that was around the time when I started to see deeper healing start to take place. Because the first 3 months, I just was not accepting it. I wasn't accepting it. Like, I was in my mind still trying to make it make sense or figure out how I could make it make sense. Even though I felt like it was not, I felt like it was done, per se. So at 4 months, I started to journal a lot. I still was in counseling. I stopped counseling about 6 months in. And yeah, so this is year 1. And I feel like this is year 1, almost like I'm an innocent newborn baby, because I'm finally doing all of the things that I felt insecure about, like building myself up. You know what I'm saying? Going through my processes, doing the things I want to do with my body, figuring out my eating, figuring out my money, figuring out where I want to live. Like, all of these things that I felt insecure about, that I put on my marriage and on the people that I was dealing with. Now I'm actually solving these things and finding solutions and dealing with them on a day-to-day basis, so that when it's time, for me to really get serious and get back out here and do my thing, do my little 1-2, I can stand on business and be solid, because I'm doing the work. You get what I'm saying? And you can be charismatic, you can lean on all of these different things. If there's no roots and no foundations to all of that, it's all gonna fail. You get what I'm saying? Your weaknesses will be revealed. And that's exactly what happened in my marriage. As time went on, I became weaker and weaker and weaker. My conscience became more troubled and troubled and troubled and troubled. So, I'm gonna continue talking about this topic. This is a very difficult topic for me to talk about. It's very personal, but I shared this because I feel like there's not people willing to share this type of stuff, in terms of being vulnerable and telling the truth, you know what I'm saying, of why a lot of people do stuff. A lot of times people be in long-term relationships to cure things that they know that they need to deal with themselves. And I was one of those people. And it don't got nothing to do with the other party involved or what they got going on. I'm speaking just on me. You know what I'm saying? My reasonings. I had a lot of good reasonings, but I also had a lot of bad reasons. I had a lot of mature reasons why I wanted to do this, and I had a lot of immature reasons why I wanted to do this. I had a lot of things that I was very solid in, and a lot of things I was not very solid in. But in this year of healing process, this year has been probably this has been the best year of my life. Literally, like, this year has been the best year of my life. It's been the hardest year of my life, but it's been the best year of my life. Like, the things that I've accomplished, the things that I've done, the challenges I faced, the monsters that I've banged out with, has been nothing less than just like, I'm amazed by what you can do when you put your mind to it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to talk more about this subject. Today is my 1-year divorce anniversary. I'm not a big fan of divorce. I'm not a big fan of marriage either, modern marriage, and I'll talk about that. I'll talk about modern women, women in America, men in America. I'm going to bust down all of those different topics on my channel as time progresses, but I'll definitely talk about this. But this is my 1-year update on, you know, my anniversary of being divorced. Remember, dream big, work hard, live great, don't stop. It's your boy Sean Rock to the salute to everybody out there gaming. Lil Nicky.